Hello fellow mutants, welcome back to another video, and in this video we're going to talk kind of about those original 90s Ninja Turtle trilogy, which I have in my hands right now. But it's going to be what I feel was the downfall of these three movies. Because I think these three films had a lot of potential to having a number 4. They had a lot of potential, but they didn't. And I even heard that they were planning to make a 4th one, and some may say that the 2007 movie was a sequel to these. Honestly, the whole dealing with the 2007 Ninja Turtle film that's titled TMNT is confusing. It's really confusing. Even as a lifelong Ninja Turtle fan, it's confusing whether or not the TMNT film is a sequel to these or like standalone. So I'm confused. Anyways, the first Ninja Turtle film was great. It was somewhat dark, but not too dark. It had its goofy moments for sure, but it essentially takes, like, what would the Turtles do? How would the Turtles handle if they didn't have Splinter anymore? If something happened to Splinter? And how, like, if the Turtles could, how would they get him back? And I really enjoyed that. The sequel of the Ooze was just pretty much the Shredder's back. The Turtles has to stop the Shredder. That's pretty much the main premise of Sequel of the Ooze. And in doing so, they find more about their heritage, about what happened to them the day they were, like, how the Ooze came to be and stuff like that. And the third one was the April O'Neil unintentionally goes back in time. The Turtles goes back in time to essentially save April. In doing so, they help free this town in feudal Japan from this douchebag dictator. These three films are so good. First off, they're live action, purely live action. Like, even the turtles are in rubber suits. They're not like Michael Bay's turtles where they're CGI. They're in rubber suits. Now, granted that the suits do change a little bit in these three movies. Like, I feel like Sequel of the Ooze looked more like the original Ninja Turtles than TMNT 3 did. If that makes sense, but you can still tell that they're turtles. And then, like, the April O'Neil change from this movie to these two movies, like, I forget the girls who played April O'Neil in this movie, but I think Paige Turco, I think is her name, played April O'Neil in these two movies. I think she did great. I actually do think the cast of these three movies did super great with what they were given, for sure. The acting was great. The production was, like, the stories were great. I feel like the story in here was really good. Just like some of the execution was And you can't say the same thing for these two, but this one is held as the best version of the Turtles. But I wasn't around in the 1990. I was born in 1996. I was born 3 years after this trilogy had its course, right? Apparently, like, parents didn't like how, like, serious and I guess gritty and dark this movie was. And the studio listened to that, and you can kind of tell, like, in Secret of the Ooze, it was not as dark as this movie, sir. Like, it was more lighthearted. It used a bit more, like, it used a tad bit more like slapstick than this movie ever did. But I still will argue that this movie is still a really good Ninja Turtle film. This is just the best. This is my favorite, but I would argue this is the best. And then this was like still had a good story in it, but it was more slapstick, more comedical than the last two, especially more than the sequel of the Ooze. And I feel that's essentially where the downfall of these three films were at. And I don't think it would be so much like being progressively like more goofy per se that was the downfall. It was the studio listening to like parents who didn't know what they were exactly talking about. Like those type of parents that get a sense that they would be like, video games, I hate video games. Video games, they're the cause of our kids being violent, being bad in school when it could be like any other reason. I feel like these are the same type of people who complain about this film. And the same type of people who complain about Michelangelo having nunchucks, which is why, in the 80s cartoon, which is why Michelangelo got from the nunchucks to the grappling hook that we saw later on in the 80s film, 80s cartoon. So I think that's where the downfall of these three, of the Ninja Turtle trilogy started, was when the studio started listening to, parents. Because little did parents know, they have the power to actually like bring their kids to the theater. So if they didn't like it, sure they can. I'm not saying they don't have a right to like say, "Oh, I don't like this film," but like, "Oh, it's too violent for our kids." That's the thing that you are like hung up over. Where this movie had Raphael say "damn" twice, him actually cursing twice, and this is rated PG. Hell, I would gladly take an issue to Raphael saying twice, like damn twice, cursing twice in the film before I ever consider bitching and complaining about, oh, it's dark, it's too violent. That's bullshit. That's actually bull. This is a beautifully crafted story. And as a kid, I essentially got the lesson, don't exactly take your parents for granted. Sadly, like I know sadly not everybody is on good terms with their parents. I get that. Life happens. But those of you, like, don't take your parents for granted, essentially, is what I got from this film. Because you might have them now, but like tomorrow or tonight or whatever, something bad could happen to them. Whether they like get kidnapped in like Splinter's case or like worse, something bad could happen to them. And that's what I got from this movie, which was a good life lesson for me. That stick with your family. Sometimes also like your friends, being Casey Jones and April O'Neil, can be like brought into your family, like be extended family, but don't take your family, parents, family, whatever, for granted. Because you might have them now. You might have them today. But something could happen where you might not ever be able to speak to them anymore. That's what I got from the first film. But, that's truly where I believe the downfall of this trilogy came. Was when the studios pay attention to the parents. And I'm willing to bet you, if this wasn't as goofy, slapsticky as it was, more like, which will probably most likely cause more people to be like find enjoyment out of this film, there would have been an official fourth film. The concept of the fourth film I've heard, which if I can find the video where I've heard about that, I will put in the description below so you guys, you beautiful people, can listen to it. But would have been in flourishing. Maybe they would have been like released in like 1995, 1996, like the fourth one. But I do also think too that, because I'm not gonna like completely say dog on like what the downfall is into these three trilogies because I'm a huge Zero fan. I love these. I have to say because like this came out in 1991. The original Ninja Turtle film came out in 1990. Secret of the Ooze came out in 1991. Yeah, I realized I unintentionally said this came out in 1991. I'm correcting myself. 1990, 1991. Sure, I would say that even though this is my favorite, this is not as good as this. But this also proves, these two films also proves that you can pump out a movie a year after, and it might not be as good as the original, but it still be. You can still produce fairly good content. Make a sequel a year after the original. Granted that, sure, I'm not gonna say the Secret of the Ooze doesn't have its flaws because it does, but I think it's a really good sequel. I love Secret of the Ooze. Secret of the Ooze is my favorite Ninja Turtle film. The original Ninja Turtle film is the best Ninja Turtle film. And I'm going to die on that hill. And I do like with these DVDs though. On the sides, you see the turtles on the side. I don't have any DVDs really that has. Actually, no, I do. I think like the DVDs I do have, some of the Disney movies I'm referring to, has the characters on the side, but not like this where it has like all the main characters. Even my Fantastic Four movie that has Jessica Alba in it, in the early 2001. I only have the first one at the time being. Doesn't have the Human Torch, Mr. Fantastic, and the Thing along with the Invincible Girl. So that's what I like about these. But I think again, the studio's listening to parents that had no idea what they're talking about is the reason. I feel like the reason why, like, is where these this trilogy kind of started to take its downfall, which is why this trilogy didn't turn into a saga. Because I feel like there could have been a bit more Ninja Turtle films in this. I could see the potential. And whether you count the TMNT movie that came out in 2007 part of this or not, like in terms of like the continuity of the Ninja Turtle 90s trilogy, that's up to you. Because there's a case to be had. There's a case to be had that they are part of the 90s trilogy, and there's a case to be had that they are not part of the 90s trilogy. So I do highly recommend, though, regardless of me saying the downfall of this trilogy was them listening to the parents, I do highly recommend watching these three films. Because these three films, I really enjoy. Like, seriously, I don't really enjoy this as much as the other two, but there are even stuff in here where I enjoy. And even though this is the weakest link of the three movies, this is still way better than a lot of stuff that we get today, in my opinion. And this is like still way better than Mutant Mayhem. Next Mutation. But taking the shows out of the way, this is still way better than Mutant Mayhem. This kind of goes on the same par with similar par as the Michael Bay movies to me. But it's a tier higher for me because they are in rubber suits. Not the CGI shit. Rubber suits. But that said, do you guys agree with me about all my take about the downfall of the 90s trilogy of the Ninja Turtles, where that they listen to the audio, like the parents, those naggy parents that said would be like, video games is the source of all problems in kids, without even like investigating themselves. Or like, do you guys agree with that, or do you think there's another? If you guys see there's a downfall of this trilogy, if there's another case, let me know. Let me know. Nearly like this is a perfect movie, nearly perfect movie. Could have had its work cut out for itself. Like, it could have been better, but I like the story. The execution could have been better. Anyways, what do you fellow mutants think? Let me know in the comment section down below. Love you guys. Have a wonderful day. As I promise, I can English. Have a wonderful day. Be kind to one another. Talk to your fellow mutants later. Later, taters.